Hello friends. So as 2024 comes to an end, in this video I want to share with you the top 5 most highly demanded supply chain jobs for 2025 and beyond. Because if you are planning for switching your career and switching your jobs in the field of supply chain, this video can really help you in getting your thoughts around what are the most highly demanded jobs and how you can build a skill set to get there. My name is Jamil Hai and I've been working in supply chain management positions across South Asia, Middle East and North America for the last 2 decades. And my mission is to help supply chain professionals like you build real life skills for your job and career that they don't teach you in college. And if you are preparing for a supply chain job interview anytime soon, you should definitely book a session with me because I'm going to take your resume, the job description you're applying for, and based on a combination of those two and my 2 decades of experience, will give you some laser guided tips and tricks which will maximize your chances of success. So go ahead now and book your session. So on number 5, I've got the supply chain risk management specialist. Now, why is a supply chain risk management specialist such an important job in 2025 and beyond? Well, there are 3 reasons for that. If you look at the post-COVID list of disruptions which has affected the supply chain the most in the last 4 years or so, they have been all related to either political turmoil, weather related disruptions, or IT related disruptions like cybersecurity threats and so on. And none of these 3 unfortunately are going away in 2025. We still have the Russia-Ukraine war going on. We still have a lot of volatility in the Middle East. That means that the political risks are not going away. Climate change unfortunately is here to stay. And because of the rising temperatures around the world, the risk of more and more climate related disasters unfortunately is actually higher. And the third factor, which is cybersecurity related threats, are also not going away because as we are building smarter solutions, we are putting more advanced software to detect cyber attacks and all those kind of things. The people who are behind all these threats are also getting smarter. So those are not unfortunately going away anytime soon as well. And because all these 3 risks are not going away anytime soon, this job is very well sought after. Let's look at some of the key skills required in this job. So first of all, as a supply chain risk management specialist, you need to know how to identify risks and how do you do risk assessment. So you need to be an expert on tools like FMEA, which stands for failure mode and effects analysis, or SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you should be very well versed with those kind of techniques. The other skill which is also required highly on this job is a risk mitigation strategy. So how do you mitigate risks with your suppliers? How do you use inventory as a risk mitigator? How do you find alternative routes when there is a strike or there is a weather related disruption which has blocked roads? So then you have to probably go on rail or find some other modes of transportation. So all of those risk mitigation strategies is something you need to have experience with, and people who have got that kind of experience are also very well sought after for these kind of roles. On number 4, you have the tried and tested demand planning specialist or demand planner, in some cases demand manager. And this job is not going away anytime soon, and it will be very well sought after even with the advent of AI. And I'll tell you why. If you think about demand planning, it is more than an art than a science, because in demand planning, and I've made a lot of videos about this, you can watch them on these links over here that you see on the screen. I've made a video on demand planner job interview preparation. I've made a video on demand planning manager job interview preparation. And if you look at those videos and the content of what kind of job this is, it is a lot about gaining consensus, working with people, not just putting some basic forecasting techniques in. So even with AI, as you can do a lot of these time series modeling, forecasting, and those statistical analysis more smartly and quickly with AI, but the human intelligence aspect of demand planning is not going away anytime soon, and that is why this job is in my top 5 list of most sought after jobs in 2025. So if you are already a demand planner or you are planning to get into the demand planning field anytime soon, you are in a very great spot because the demand planning jobs are likely to remain in very high demand, no pun intended. On number 3, I've got the supply chain data analyst position, and this job is only going higher and higher in demand because as the companies are getting more and more hands on data, not only their own data, but their customers' data, their suppliers' data, and the supply chains are becoming more and more integrated. And there are more and more advanced tools to crunch that data as well, right? Because for the longest time, we had a lot of data that supply chain has been sitting on. But now with the advancement of AI, a lot of that data is crunchable in a shorter span of time. Therefore, the demand of people who know that skill, people who can do data visualization, is only going to be going up. And therefore, if you are a supply chain data analyst or you are a general data analyst and you want to enter supply chain, this is a great time to do that. On number 2, I've got the Supply Chain Sustainability and ESG Manager. ESG, by the way, stands for Environmental, Social and Governance Manager. Now, this job could be sitting under the manufacturing arm of supply chain, or it could be sitting under the delivery arm of supply chain, or the source arm of supply chain, depending on wherever the company's biggest fruits are when it comes to sustainability. And the reason why this job is so highly in demand is that the risks of climate change are becoming more and more visible, and we are almost living in that time now where we are seeing some abnormal temperatures around the world. And so as these risks of climate change are becoming more and more visible, companies are also taking this threat much more seriously and trying to bring their goals forward. So, a few years ago, we used to hear things like, oh, we will be sustainable by 2100 or by 2070. No, because now if you look at the climate goals of some of the companies, they are talking about achieving certain goals by 2025 or by 2030. Let's look at some real examples on that. So if you look at Unilever's environmental strategy, they are claiming that by 2039, they will be net zero emissions across their value chain, which is a huge target. But similarly, if you look at Coca-Cola, their goal is to make all of their packaging, 100% of their packaging recyclable by 2025, which is next year. So very lofty goal, but I'm sure they have a strategy to put that in place. And finally, if you look at L'Oreal as an example, their goal is by 2025 to reach 100% renewable energy for all their sites, and by 2030 they want to reduce 25% of their carbon footprint, which is massive. So in order to make these things happen, you need people who are experts in sustainable supply chain. You need people who have delivered this in other organizations. And therefore, the demand of sustainability specialists in supply chain is only going to go up, and 2025 is no exception to that. And finally, on number 1, I've got the supply chain transformation role. Now transformation is becoming more than just a buzzword, and there is a compelling reason for companies to invest in supply chain transformation. And there are 2 reasons for that. The first reason is that what we covered in the previous role, which is sustainability. In order to achieve some of those sustainability goals, you need to really transform your supply chains. And therefore, that is one big reason to drive supply chain transformation. But the other reason is also cost. If you think about the aftermath of COVID, due to inflation of prices and all that price spike that happened as a result of raw material shortages and container shortages around the world in the aftermath of the pandemic, all the companies almost invariably took price increases, and that is what drove inflation and forced central banks to increase interest rates. However, now we have come to a point where those price hikes have almost maxed out because the consumer can't just simply pay anymore. So companies need to transform their supply chains in order to be more and more effective with their delivery models. So they need to find more innovative solutions, which means they need to transform their supply chains, whether it is in the digital space or it's in the physical space. And therefore, this job is the most sought after job. And people who have experience in delivering physical or digital transformations are very well sought after. And by the way, you don't have to do crazy things to drive your transformation. Even if you are moving, let's say, your ERP from a traditional ERP to a more cloud-based ERP, which has its own benefits. And that's what, by the way, a lot of companies are doing with S4HANA. That is also an example of a transformation. So anyone who has done those kind of digital transformations, or they have transformed their physical networks to make their overall supply chain more cost-effective and more carbon-effective, those people will be highly sought after. And that is why this job sits on the top of my list for the top 5 most highly demanded supply chain jobs in 2025. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I've also made videos on topics like the highest paying supply chain jobs in the US and Canada, which you can watch by clicking over here. Keep watching. Yeah.